So I'm going to demonstrate how to create layouts in MadComponents. I've started off with a new project. Now I've put a little bit of code in here, but this is just the standard things that you put in any pure ActionScript project. So there's just a couple of lines here to make sure the stage alignment and scale mode are right. And I've also just set the frame rate to 60 frames per second and a white background color. In my project I've also created a lib folder, and I've dragged in the MC3D library into that folder. Now make sure that you're linked to that library. So if I go to, you can see here that I am linked to that library, so I can use MadComponents and also the MC3D classes. First thing I'd better do is import .danielfreeman.madcomponents.star, because we'll be using those classes. I'll just put an import in front of that, just tidy that up. Okay, so this gives us access to the MadComponents library, and now I'm going to make myself a very simple MadComponents layout. So I go protected static const, let's call it layout, and this is going to be XML. MadComponents layouts are defined using XML in a similar way to Flex. There, something very, very simple there. So that's defined my layout. I'm just going to have a button. And then in my program, I just have one line of code that tells MadComponents to render the layout. There we are, that's all I need. So I'll run the application, and there we are. There's a simulation on my mobile screen and a button with hello. Now, just for demonstration, I'm writing everything in the same file, but it is possible to separate the layout from the rest of the code, and a lot of developers are using various MVC schemes to write their MadComponents applications. If you want to find out more, come to the Facebook group. Alright, let's make this a little bit more sophisticated now. Let's start to lay out things in different ways. So I'm going to have a vertical container, inside which I'm going to have two buttons. This one I'm going to have the word world and end. Okay, so if I run that, we get two buttons vertically arranged with the words hello and world. I'll change the color of this button to a kind of orange kind of color, and this button here I will put in some XML styling eyes. I can actually do that if I want to. So I'll save that, run the program again. So the first button here, I've altered the color, and the second button I've altered the text. I've only altered the text size. If I wanted to, I could change the typeface or change the color of the text or whatever. So here's our layout, and at the moment we've arranged things vertically. You probably won't be surprised to see that if I change these to horizontal, and run the program, then that will arrange the buttons horizontally. I've got a couple more layout options. I can say columns. If I say align H equals fill as well, that'll make sure each button fills the space available. And if I run that, you can see that the screen's been divided effectively into columns, and each button is filling the space inside a column. Let me just add something else to this layout. Let me just add a slider component. Very simple one like that. I haven't specified anything especially inside there. And you see that there are my two buttons, and there is the slider as well. And another option we have is rows. You can use columns and rows together to build table structures to place components in. So if I run that, you can see that now vertically the screen's been divided into equally spaced rows, and at the top of each row we've got a component like this. Let's do something a little bit more sophisticated. I have some data here. All my data is just the months January to December, and I want to display that data as a list. So I'm going to create a new layout, protected static const. I'm going to call it list this time, XML, and my layout's going to be very simple. Just a tag name called list. I'm going to incorporate the XML that I've written above, which is called months. So if you haven't seen that curly braces syntax before, oops, my fingers aren't working today. That's all that does. That just incorporates this XML that you've defined in here and just puts it inside there. And of course I have to change my program slightly, because instead of layout I want to display list there. So let me just run this program now. This kind of list is designed for a mobile device, so it's a little trickier to kind of click and drag it on the desktop. I'm going to put in some styling. So I'm going to change the color of the dividing lines in the list, and I'm also going to set up the color of each list row. List rows are actually skinnable as well, but I'm not going to show you that today. So what shall I do here? There we are. Let's see what that looks like. So if I run that program, now we get a list with alternating colors and a very slight 3D effect as well on each of the rows. Finally, I'm going to play one more trick on the list. I'm going to put in a search bar, and we've only got one item at the moment in the list, which is called label. So I'm just going to put in the search like that, and I'm going to run this, and you see we get a search bar at the top. So if I type in, say, J, that gives me all the list rows with J in them. If I type A, that only leaves January. So the search bar is wired up. I didn't have to write any code to do that. So far we've made two layouts. We've made a simple layout with some components in it, and we've made a list. But we haven't yet built an application with more than one page. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to call this pages, and my two pages, well, I'm going to surround this by a tab pages container, quirk there, tab pages, and my two pages, well, the first one is just a layout, and the second one was my list. So I'm just including these definitions. I'm including the XML definition, which is my layout, and including the one that was list there. I'll just put a semicolon at the end of that and put in pages here and run the program. And you see I've got a couple of tab pages at the moment. Now there's no labels yet, there's no icons, and I haven't styled them, but that can all be done in code. But if I click on the tab pages, you can see I can change page like that. Now I'm going to modify this and do something a little different. So I'm going to put in view flipper there and view flipper here. I'm going to run the program, and this time the tab pages are gone, but I've got a couple of indicators there, two indicators because I've got 2 pages, and if I click and if I drag my page sideways like that, you can see, whoops, it's easier on testing on a real device than it is on testing on the screen. You can see that I've got a very simple view flipper, and I can add as many pages to this view flipper as I like.